Okay, ji, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. While continuing with the second part of our lecture, we today would be moving forward to see that the second part of the lecture will be more about the PPRA regulations, and I will try to cover some of the important changes which are presently coming into the revised version of the PPRA regulations, which is certainly the 2020 version of the PPRA rules. I will start with this very comprehensive Quranic words on the contract, which gives us a very basic and fundamental principle for the contract management. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha tadayantum bidainin ila ajalin musamma faktubuhu walyaktub bainakum katibun bil adl ولا ياب كاتب أن يكتب كما علمه الله فليكتب وليملل الذي عليه الحق وليتق الله ربه ولا يبخس منه شيئا فإن كان الذي عليه الحق سفيها أو ضعيفا أو لا يستطيع أن يمله وليملل وليه بالعدل واستشهدوا شهيدين من رجالكم فإن لم يكونا رجلين فرجل وامرأتان ممن ترضون من الشهداء أن تدل إحداهما وتذكر إحداهما الأخرى ولا ياب الشهداء إذا ما دعوا ولا تسأموا أن تكتبوا صغيرا أو كبيرا إلى أجله وذلكم أقسط عند الله وأقوم للشهادة وأدنى ألا ترتابوا إلا أن تكون تجارة حاضرا تديرونها بينكم فليس عليكم جناح ألا تكتبوها وأشهدوا إذا تبايعتم ولا يدار كاتب ولا شهيد وإن تفعلوا فإنه فسوق بكم واتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله والله بكل شيء عليم. صدق الله العظيم. My dear student friends and audience, this is one of the, I think, one of the largest verse of the Holy Quran, which spells about the fundamental principles of the contract management. I'll not read the entire translation in Urdu or English, but I'll take some of the principles which have been given by the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the guidance of the Muslims while dealing with others in their trades and businesses. So the first thing is that there must be a contract. When you bet or you do something or dealing with others, there must be a contract. And this might be better in a written form. And then it should be drafted in the justice, and there should not be, the scribe should not refuse to write as Allah has taught him. So if somebody who is having the capacity to draft this agreement or contract, he must not refuse. And so let him write and let the one who has the obligation dictate. So the person who has the capacity must write it in the other person who must dictate it. And let them fear Allah, his Lord, and not leave anything out of it. So it must be comprehensive, and it must be written with all the equity, the justice. But if the one who has the obligation is of limited understanding or weak or unable to dictate himself, then let the guardian dictate justice. So if the person who is dictating the agreement is part of the dealing, and he's not having the capacity or knowledge, then he should request, and he can request the guardian. He can have some other person who can represent him for writing this contract. And while you are doing this contract, you should bring 2 witnesses from among your men. And if there are not 2 men, then you can bring 1 man and 2 women, so that if one of the women can err or forget, then the other can remind her. And let the witness not refuse when they are called upon. And this again is very important, that the witness to the contract should have the obligation and they should not refuse when they are called in the administration of this contract. And finally, and do not vary to write it, whether it's small or large, it is specified. So I think this is still having a lot of other translations, but it gives you the basic principle of contract management, and we'll discuss later. This is one of the very important address of the Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the father of the nation, when he was addressing the first Constituent Assembly meeting as early as 11 August 1947. He said that one of the biggest curses from which India is suffering is bribery and corruption. It really is a poison. We must put that down with an iron hand, and I hope that you will take adequate measures as soon as it is possible for this assembly to do so. And today, unfortunately, the corruption rate in Pakistan is not reduced. And if you look at the 2004 statistics, the Pakistan Transparency International score is 1.9, India 2.9, and Bangladesh 1.2. Out of 10 are ranked in the lowest 50 countries amongst 141. Certainly, this has been increased a little bit, but still Pakistan is considered to be one of the top 10 countries at 30 or 40 countries in which there is high level of corruption and there is less access to the information, where the people are not having their decision making in a transparent way. Now, the public procurement rules, which were promulgated in 2009 as a consequence of a lot of corruption and a lot of variation and a lot of anomalies in the procurement processes adopted by the public institutions and public concerns. So the rules were formulated in 2009, the first kind of a comprehensive procurement rules, which mainly addresses all the phases from the planning to the procurement and the cycle we discussed last time, that it covers the entire important parts of the procurement cycle. Now, there has been some amendments in the 2009 public procurement rules, and the latest version of 2020, which is in the draft form, is being reviewed, and I hope that within next few months it will be adopted and it will be an improved version of the public procurement rules. Now, the principles of the procurements are 5 fundamental principles: that the decision of procurement must be economical, that the price, quality, time constraint, associated risk must give the value of money. So the money which we spend into the public procurement should have the value we are spending on the procurement. Efficiency and optimization, that we should have a best value for money, that whatever is possible with that money, we should go for that. And then the third one is fairness, that equal opportunity and healthy competition must be ensured. And then there must be transparency, that the relevant procurement information should be publicly available. And finally, there must be accountability, there must be responsibility, and the people must be clearly defined in terms of their responsibilities and accountability. These are the fundamental 5 principles which constitute the basic spirit of the public procurement rules. And this is given in the class 4 of the PPRA rules. When we go to the independent class 7, it gives us the independent price determination, that when we are assessing the bids, we should have a very fair and a very rational price assessments before we decide about the reasonability of the prices quoted by the bidders. And this must be prepared once the procurement process, before the procurement process is started. And this can be based on 3 or 4 major aspects. For example, the first is that we can go, the market analysis can be done and we can get the quotes about the the prices of various items we are procuring. The second approach is which is commonly used for the works and projects which are done in the civil engineering and other construction projects. We follow the rate analysis and the schedule of rate, which is called composite schedule of rates and labor in rates. And this CSR, composite schedule of rates, is then giving us a fair assessment of the basic price, and then the contractors are invited to quote their premia in terms of above and below on the basic price. Then we can go for the detailed cost estimation, which is based sometimes called the engineer's estimate, and this estimate is then made as base for the decision making. And this normally includes the direct cost, which is material and labor cost, and then incidental charges or indirect cost, overheads, taxes, profits. And normally there is a guideline that 20 to 25% of the basic prices is added to cover the other expenditures. So this would depend again that how do you. So for normally for the non-scheduled rates, which are not given items which are not covered under the schedule, we are trying to to develop the market-based engineer estimates. The class 9 is a very important addition to the PPRA rules, the proposed PPRA rules, which tells us that there are some debarment provisions which are considered in the new version, that in case the bidder has failed to respond to the orders or to the work orders and to the decisions, and once the work is awarded and he or she is not fulfilling the performance, then definitely they can be debarred. So these are some of the, I'll not read them all, but definitely it gives us a different scenario in which the various penalties and fines have been proposed by the PPRA, the revised version. Yes, if you go for the class 12, it states that if a contractor is debarred from in the subsequent tendering, and the firm is also fined based on the nature of the non-compliance with the firm is done, then definitely they have the right of appeal to the committee, and this appeal to the department decision can be covered under the class 12 of the PPRA regulations. Now, in the earlier version of PPRA 2009, the limit of upper limit of quotation to the limit of 30 million. So it is being revised now to 30 million, which is the opportunity which is to be advertised only on the website of the PPRA and the authority. This limit is presently 2 million, but looking at the success of this method, PPRA is proposing that it should be enhanced to 30 million, and that I think would be a very good opportunity. But at the same time, my concern, and I share this concern with the PPRA, that this may give may lead to the to opportunities of corruption in some cases, particularly in the remote areas where we don't have very well placed connectivity and internet facilities. All procurement opportunities above the threshold defined in the sub-rule shall be published on the authority's website. For example, for the national tender, it may be one in English and other in national local, but at least there must be 3. For international tenders, it may be circulated international English newspapers or magazines. One, our parent ministry website and PPRA website is also, own website is also important in this case. So initially it was 2 million, but now they're proposing that if the procurement opportunity is more than 30 million, it should be then widely advertised in the newspapers. The response time, which is the time from the tender notice in the newspapers and on the websites and the date of opening of tender, that is normally called response time. And The duration has been specified for different kinds of procurement. For example, if it is pre-qualification and expression of interest at national level, there must be 15 days. And if the expression of interest is of international level, then this must be 21 days. And if it is the proposal of consultancy services or complete turnkey projects like engineering, procurement, and construction, and engineering, procurement, construction, and commissioning, then in this case, in turnkey projects, we need a bit longer period. So they are proposing that for such kind of activities, there must be 30 days. Similarly, the EPC projects where the consultancy services is required, the period must be, for international, it must be 45 days. And for other bidding, which is of national level, the duration must be 15 days, and for the international tendering of normal nature, it must be 30 days. So principally, for national bidding, the duration between the appearing of the tender and the opening of the bid must be 15 days for the national tender or bidding, and then for international bidding or tendering, it must be 30 days. For consultancy, we have some additional time because in consultancy, normally the assessment is quite laborious. The response time is clear days from the last day of publication of the procurement, not including the publishing day. So if we are publishing opportunity on the 1st of January, the opening date should have a clear days 15, so it should be 16 January or onwards. It should not be 15th of January. The second is the solicitation document shall be issued or remain available for download till the given date, allowing sufficient time, which shall not be less than one third of the response time to complete and submit the document by the closing date. So this again is very important that the tender documents must be issued as and when the tender process is appeared in the tender notices appeared in the newspaper, and should be also available on the website of the procuring agency for downloads. Any corrigendum or addendum shall be issued by procuring agency in the same media within the period not less than half of the response time in case of any modification, except in case of extension the closing date. This again is very important that if you want to have some correction, addendum, or some modification in the tender document, it should not be done after half of the period of the notice period. And again, for extension, it can be done. For example, we had to extend one of the tender just 1 week before the, or 6 weeks before the opening because of the COVID-19 situation, where we are not able to, even the contractors are not able to travel to Gilgit and participate in the tendering process. We discussed briefly the three bidding procedures, but today we will further explain that we had one envelope, two envelope, then in two envelope we have single stage two envelope, and then we have two stage two envelope, and then we have the negotiated contracts. So I'll not read it. We discussed this last time, but certainly we will skip it, and I will straight away go to the. Now the bidding document or the tender document must include some of the very important information. For example, invitation to tender, instruction to tender, form of bid, form of contract, general and special conditions of contract or FIDIC, specification and drawings or performance criteria, where the specific performance is required, list of goods or bill of quantities, delivery time and completion schedule, qualification criteria where applicable, standard form of determining capacity and capability of the tenders, tender evaluation criteria and mechanism for evaluation and determining the responsiveness, format of all types of forms, standard forms for technical and financial proposals, if there are details of required security where applicable, details of standards, if any, there are to be used in assessing the quality of goods, works, or services, any other detail not inconsistent with these rules that the procuring agency may deem necessary in case the value of the contract is more than 50 million, then we need to have the integrity paid also. The 16 class 16 deals with with the clarification of bid document, that if the request is submitted to a procuring agency for any clarification not later than one third of the response time remaining, the procuring agency shall, within 3 working days after receipt of the request for clarification, communication its unambiguous response to the respective party along with the publication of response on its website without identifying the source of the requests, to enable all the interested parties to take into account the clarification in the preparation of the applications or proposals. So this is very important, that when the response time is, for example, 2 weeks, and there is any request for clarification from the bidders, but it should not be later than 1/3. That means that if there are 15 days, then it should not be later than 5 days. Lesser than 5 days. In this case, the procuring agency will give all the clarification and, if deemed necessary, arrange a pre-tender meeting with the prospective bidders, and the proceeding of such meeting shall be duly documented and publicized. So this is again very important, that if there is any need and we want to further clarify the things, we can have a pre-bid meeting or pre-bid conference, and anything which we decide in this pre-bid conference must be widely communicated and publicized so that the prospective bidders can know about it. If required, solicitation or tender document by issuing an addendum or a corrigendum, but not later, again the same, that we can issue some corrigendum, but it should not be later than 1/3 of the remaining time. Security and tender values. Normally, the bid security, which is normally for the securing the bid, we call it bid security or tender security or earnest money. And this is normally from 2 to 5% of the bid value. Preferably, we recommend 22%, and this may be in the form of a negotiable instrument like bid guarantee. It should be a guarantee from Schedule Bank or the International Chamber of Commerce. Is referred in the tender documents. The performance security is normally from the AAA firms, and that is 10 to 15% of the bid. We normally recommend 10% of the bid value to ensure that the performance will be given assured by the guarantor. Tender security shall remain valid for a period of not less than 28 days beyond the initial extended tender value in order to provide the procuring agency reasonable time to activate the security is called for. So the minimum period of this validity of the tender and tender security is 28 days, but in case it is extended, then we may go up to 6 months from the last date of submission of the financial letter if the tender validity extended. So the tender should minimum valid for 28 days and maximum 6 months. So 28 days to 6 months. And if there is some extension required due to the delay in decision or the circumstances which are not in the, for example, the present situation we have. So in such case, then we can extend that validity up to 3 months of the tender are equal to the half of the initial tender validity. For example, if the initial validity is 60 days, then it can be extended for 30 days or maximum 3 months. The tender value not willing to extend, the tender not willing to extend the tender validity shall be allowed to withdraw. Now, this validity extension or the bid validity period extension would depend also on the will of the bidder, because in case the bidder is not willing to allow this extension, then certainly the firm can be allowed to withdraw their bid security. The specification and standards must be generic. It should not have reference to a brand name, model, catalog, or something like origin of the country and similar classification, because generally, according to PEPRA, it gives some advantage to the firms or the brands, and then the fair competition cannot be ensured. Where such reference become inevitable, for example, in complex procurement, in high technology procurement like high-tech precision machinery in engineering, in research, then we refer to some brands or some origins because of the very wide diversity of the quality and the standards. Then we may refer to some brands, but at the same time, we should also write the word equivalent so that we cannot just give advantage to one brand or one origin. In this particular case, we should also document the reason and the justification that why this word equivalent is being added or the brands have been added. The tender can be rejected on many grounds. For example, if it is not responsive, and responsive is normally the tender which is having some conditions and which is not having the requirements, the fundamental requirements which are set forth in the tender documents, like the bid security, the forms of bids, and all important things which are normally part of the initial bid. They have not been submitted with the bid. No tender or proposal satisfy the criteria for the award of the contract as set of the intended document or request for proposal. So we can reject if none of the bids have fulfilled the requirement. The economic or technical data of the projects have been altered. So there might be some change in the project proposal, the technical requirements, and the bid may no more cover our technical requirements. In exceptional circumstances where the performance of the contract is impossible, this is normally in the case where we have the, for example, in the lockdown situation we have today. If there is a tender which has already been opened and we believe that that will be completed in 1 or 2 months, then certainly the lockdown period where high uncertainty has encountered, we can then look for the cancellation or rejection of bids. Every tender or proposal exceeds the budgetary resource, and normally if the bid is more than 10% of the approved cost, then we normally not recommended for approval and we go for retendering based on high prices. The tender or proposal received contains serious irregularities which are not able to solve or resolve, and it may not be able to play in the market forces. Funds voted or earmarked for the procurement have been withheld, are suspended. So this is normally in the financial crisis situation in which the government then decides to hold the developmental projects sometime and we are not able to. So in this particular case, we then would recommend we can then take decision to suspend the work or to altogether reject the work. There has been no competition, monopoly, or pooling. The competition is not there. The reasonability of price cannot be assessed. The pooling of contractor is observed that they have tried to make a pool or cartel, and where the competitive bidding process of the PEPRA is not adopted. So in this particular case, when the requirements of open competition have not been fulfilled, then certainly we can look for rejection of the bids. The institutional arrangements are very important under different clauses, and for example, the procurement agency officer, the role public accounting officer, sorry, PO, his role and authorities are covered in clause 24. 25th, the establishment, procurement, planning, and management unit. So in the larger organization, it's recommended that there must be a PPMU. Composition and role of tender evaluation committee. It's very important that you bring the experts, and this has been covered in clause 26. Then establishment and composition of the negotiation team. This is very important for negotiated contracts. And then finally, then we have the grievance redressal committee, GRC, and the dispute resolution forum, DRF. So these are some of the important additions in the PEPRA 2020 amendments, which cover some deep requirements. The bidding procedures for eligibility of shortlisting and qualification, a natural person, company, firm may not be eligible to participate in the procurement proceedings if not competent to enter into the contract in accordance with the provision of the law. So if the law has barred someone to, so the firm cannot take part, does not hold the valid income tax as a taxpayer. Provided if such person, company, or firm is exempted from the requirement of the class, they may be notified by the FBR and respective tax department. This is very obvious in the areas where the tax holiday has been governed, and the Gilgit-Baltistan is one of the such areas where the tax exemption is given for 5 years. Declared bankrupt are in receivership of whom are applied to be adjudicated as insolvent, declared insolvent by the court of competent jurisdiction. So if a person or a firm has become insolvent or bankrupt, then definitely they cannot be allowed to take part in the bidding process. The person, company, or firm is debarred in accordance with the provisions of these rules. If the PPRA or Pakistan Engineering Council or any other department has debarred the firm based on the decisions of the PPRA rules, then definitely such kind of firms cannot be allowed to take part in the bidding process. The tender is required to be submitted as a joint venture, consortium, or association, and one of the parties of such arrangements is declared ineligible. Whole joint venture, consortium, or association shall be declared as ineligible. This is very important. For example, if one of the joint venture partner is having some debarment or some blacklisting by the government department, then the entire JVR consortium would not be applied. The pre-qualification of bidders, which is for large complex projects where we initially develop a panel of bidders for projects like EPC, EPCC, engineering, procurement, and construction, engineering, procurement, construction, and commissioning, build, operate, or and transfer contracts, then we can go for pre-qualification, because we believe that through ordinary competitive process, we cannot be able to achieve the desired competition and quality. The quality and performance of primary concern for supply of expensive and technical complex equipment and machinery and supplies backup and maintenance service are critical. So this can be another situation where we can go for pre-qualification. Shortlisting of capable tenders is required for continuity supply of the recurrent consumable items, goods for which there is an inventory control system for 3 years maximum. So sometime we want to shortlist in continuation to the goods and services already acquired only for particular assignments. So it cannot be a generic pre-qualification for all kind of procurement. Rather, it would always identify the particular assignment. Pre-qualification document must be prepared by department and approved by the public accounting officer, and this must be incorporating all important rules of the PPRA and the Pakistan Engineering Council. Appropriate and unambiguous evaluation criteria in the light of regulations and instruction issued by the authority from time to time. Pakistan Engineering Council pre-qualification criteria for engineering projects. In case where less than 3 applicants across the pre-qualification threshold, the procuring agency may partially revise the evaluation criteria. This again is very important, that in order to avoid the monopolies and cartels of the bidders, we may sometime relax the pre-qualification criteria to see that if we can have more than at least three bidders. The result of the pre-qualification shall be available on the website of the authority. This must be clearly available to all the bidders. The decision and the criteria for the decision all should be publicly available. Another very important document is expression of interest, which is covered in class 35 of the PPRA regulations, that when we require a capable consultant to carry out large and technical complex assignments, then we may go for expression of interest or UI. The service of the consultant for design or supervision of large and technical complex works we do requires the combined service of the capable design and development firms for turnkey contracts. We discussed this. And the short list shall be made of the consultant who is in the view of procuring agency, possessing the required capabilities and experience to be provided for specific services. So in such circumstances, we would prefer to go for expression of interest as one of the basic way of procurement. The class 36 tells about the post-qualification and disqualification, that verification of the information provided by the tender shall be confirmed through a post-qualification process before notice of intention to award the tender is communicated. Where successful tender fails to demonstrate its qualification, the procuring agency shall reject the tender and shall select the next rank most advantageous contender from amongst the remaining tenders. The procuring agency shall disqualify a supplier or a contractor if it finds at any time that the information submitted by him concerning the qualification was false and materially inaccurate and incomplete. This is normally the process for post-qualification, in which we normally try to see that if there is any incompetency, imperfection, falsification of information in the pre-qualification process, then we certainly can go for the post-qualification. We discussed this last time, but we will go for further detail that there are different competitive methods. For example, in international competitive tendering shall be used when it is to be made in the foreign currency. Procuring agency desire to attract widest range of tender regardless of the estimated value of the procurement. The procurement is of such magnitude in nature that it is prescribed by the authority. So for this kind of large procurement, and which is mostly regarding the technical equipment, which is normally import-based, we normally make the payment in the international currency or foreign currency. The national competitive bids are in the Pak rupees, and these related to goods, works, and services which are locally available at low prices. The magnitude and nature of the procurement does not fall in the category of international tendering as prescribed by the authority. The estimated cost of the good works or service does not exceed the threshold for open international tendering prescribed by authority in the form of regulations. The advantages of international competitive tendering are clearly overweighed due to administrative or financial burden. And this many times is important when we have the crisis of the foreign currency and things like that. There can be a third form of restricted tendering when we don't go for open competitive bids due to the circumstances and due to the nature of procurement. The goods, works, or services which are required of highly specialized nature as prescribed by the authority can be obtained from a limited number of specialized contractors, service providers, and reputable sources. The suppliers, contractors, service providers have already been pre-qualified. So in this particular case, whether the government have already pre-qualified them, the department have pre-qualified them, then we go only to these pre-qualified bidders to collect their bids. For reasons of extreme urgency brought about the events unforeseeable and there could be insufficient time to engage to open international or national bids. This is normally in the crisis-like situation, and again the COVID-19, a lot of departments are procuring the health supplies without bidding process because of the nature of the crisis we have. The good may be manufactured or delivered only by a particular supplier due to technical or artistic reasons or for reason connected with protection of exclusive right or intellectual property. So sometimes the goods are available only with one person and they are having the intellectual property. They might be the exclusive manufacturer provider. So in this case, we can go direct for this kind of contracting. The procurement or disposal planning, which is covered under the revised document of 31 class, that the procurement disposal planning shall be composed of individuals having expertise. So the planning committee is very important. And it should be initiated by the procuring agency as soon as the agency needs are identified, and must be completed well in advance of the fiscal year. So normally we recommend that this planning should be done in the first quarter, in which we can specify the procurement process in the 4 quarters of the year. For all those requirements which are sufficient funds have been allocated in the approved budget of the coming financial year, if payment will be due in subsequent financial years. So if the funds have been allocated and releases have been committed, then definitely we should go according to the funds allocated. Initial market analysis shall be made by the designated officials. This is very important for, and we discussed this in last few slides, that it is very important to establish the reasonable price for competitive bids. The goods of similar or related nature may be grouped into a single tender. So, but a single tender should not be grouped into, for example, if you are procuring 200 computers, it's not advisable that you divide this procurement to 4 subcontracts of 550 each. So this would definitely create problems. We discussed the 5 or 6. We briefly discuss again that there is single stage procedures, single stage envelope procedure, 2-stage envelope procedure, single source procurement, request for quotation, PT purchases, and force account. So I think I better leave it to the readers, because I have already discussed the one envelope procedures in quite details. Then we have the envelope single stage procedure, single stage envelope. We discussed that we get both the technical and financial bids, and we see that we review the technical bids and see that those firms who have already qualified the technical bids, then they are called, and their financial bids are opened. The single stage envelope procedure is having a lot of steps, and please you read it carefully and see that how can you implement that into your procurement. The 2-stage envelope procedure, which is normally for highly complex and technical projects, for open and restricted competitive tendering by using simultaneous and competitive negotiations, where deliberations with tenders are essential to refine the terms, specification, features, and requirements, prescribe the technical or quality characteristics. Negotiation through open competition, where the tender proceedings are already cancelled due to nil response. That can be the situation. Competitive negotiation through restricted tendering, where the procuring agency seeks to enter into a contract for the purpose of study, specific experiment, and research and development. Competitive negotiation through restricted negotiation, where the goods may be manufactured or delivered only by few particular suppliers. The competitive negotiation through restricted tendering, where for reason of urgency, it becomes inevitable. And competitive negotiation through restricted tendering for defense and national security goods. So these are some of the circumstances in which we can have the restricted and we can go for single stage envelope bidding procedure. In the first stage, again, we get the technical and financial proposals, and then we evaluate it, and then see if there is any change required. We go for the second stage, and so on. There are a couple of alternative methods for procurement. For example, the single source procurement, in which we directly procure from the source, with the sources having exclusive rights, or where we have emergency, for example, the catastrophic events, if there is an extreme urgency, and there would be sufficient time to engage in open national international tendering. The goods or services are available only from a particular tender who has exclusive rights. We discussed this. Additional supplies of the same type of those purchased under an existing contract are required, and the limit of this is 15% in addition to the original procurements. For example, if we have procured 100 computers from the firm, and in the meanwhile, the contract is operative and we need 15 additional computers in the department, then definitely we can go for that procurement. Where standardization of spare parts is required so that they may be compatible with the existing equipment or parts. So in such circumstances, if there is only one firm which is manufacturing these equipment, then definitely we go directly. Only once in a financial year for purchase of motor vehicle and small branded item of own choice, such as computers, laptops, air conditioners, and up to the maximum limit of ₹1 million, other than on motor vehicle from original manufacturer or their authorized agent at the manufacturer price. So this is a new amendment in the PPRA rules, that you can purchase one vehicle directly, motor vehicle directly from the firm, and it's really up to 1 million you can directly purchase from authorized agent, but there must be enough reason to justify that this decision is competent. The request for quotation was initially is presently for 100,000, that if you procure the 100,000 or less, but more than the PT purchases, then you can go directly into the market and you can call the notice inviting quotation. But in the revised document, it is now enhanced to 500,000 or US dollars, 5,000 for the embassies and consulates and foreign missions. The executive board of the department may increase it to 2 times. If the department believes that this limit can be increased, then the Senate of the university or the executive board of the department can increase this limit up to 2 times. That would mean 1 million. The supplier shall respond to the RFQ within 3 working days. The work order shall be issued to the supplier quoting minimum cumulative price if meeting prescribed requirements. So the minimum price would be the selection criteria for this kind of procurements. And now the PT purchases, which are the small purchases which we normally get through single quotation in the market. For example, we need the daily supplies and goods in the departments. So in this particular case, and this should be the 1/5 of the RFQ. At the moment, the limit is 25,000 in the original PPRA 2009, but now if it is enhanced to 500,000, then 1/10 of this would be something like 50,000. We have to ensure that the price quoted is reasonable. No advantage to procuring agencies likely to be obtained by seeking further quotation. The contract for the provision of such good service may be a local purchase order. An original invoice or receipt for the procurement of good or service shall be obtained mentioning the name of the officer undertaking such procurement. And the procuring agency shall be responsible for ensuring that the value of the money is obtained to the extent practicable. So this is very important, and this takes us to the original spirit of the PPRA rules. The force account is again for the PT works where we engage the labor, or we directly procure the material on must-roll basis or a daily wage basis. Then in this particular case, force account is used. Execution of procurement of small works and non-consultancy services by the use of procuring agency owned resources. The required works, for example, if we have some capacity like painters and we want to engage some helpers or some material, then that can be done a force account, which is work is required to be carried out without disrupting ongoing operations. Urgent repairs, rehabilitation, remodeling works of national heritage requiring prompt attention to prevent further damages. Risk of unavoidable work interruptions are better borne by the procuring agency. There are extreme emergencies. The procuring agency is qualified personnel to carry out and supervise the required assignments, and the maintenance or construction is part of the routine activity of the procuring agency. It is cheaper to execute the assignment within in-house. So what we normally do that we engage the internal expertise like laborers, and we then on a force account we buy the various supplies and various material for them, and we on daily basis we make them execute the work. And normally we do such kind of things in emergencies, like we have convocations, some conferences and things like that. I would prefer to stop this second part, which was about the PPRA rules, and then we would go to the other next part, and that would be about the selection of consultants. So thank you very much, and we then go to the